My sister sued me for my house after I cared for our dying mom alone for 4 years. My mom took her last breath on a Tuesday at 2:14 in the afternoon in her bedroom in Dayton, Ohio. I was sitting on the edge of the mattress, holding her thin hand. On Friday morning at 9:03, while I was standing in a funeral home trying to pick out a casket I could actually afford, my sister's expensive lawyer called my cell phone to tell me she was suing me for my house. My name is Sarah. I am 34 years old. For the last 4 years, I completely paused my life and lived in my childhood home to take care of our dying mother. It was never supposed to be a solo job. Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer right after my 30th birthday. Our dad had passed away years before, so it was just us. My older sister, Jessica, is 37. She lives up in Columbus with her husband and her 2 kids, which is only about an hour and a half away. They both make incredibly good money. When Mom first got sick, we sat down for a family meeting at the kitchen table. The exact same wooden table where we used to do our homework as kids. Jessica cried heavy tears, reached across the table to hold my hand, and laid out her plan. "Sarah, you do not have kids," she told me. "You do freelance graphic design, so you can work from literally anywhere. It makes the most sense for you to move back in here. But we will help you. We will come down every single weekend. We will split all the medical costs. You will not do this alone." I gave up my apartment in Cincinnati. I packed my entire life into cardboard boxes and moved back into my childhood bedroom. I became a full-time caregiver. Jessica came down the first 2 weekends. Then it dropped to once a month. Then, by the second year, it was just Thanksgiving and Christmas. And every single time she did bother to show up, she stayed for exactly 2 hours, took a bunch of smiling selfies with Mom to post on Facebook with hashtags about being strong, and then she drove back to her massive house in Columbus. For 4 agonizing years, it was just me and Mom. I managed a daily chart of 23 different medications. I woke up in the dark to drive her to Ohio Health oncology appointments at 6 in the morning. I cleaned up her vomit from the bathroom floor. I held her head and wiped her tears when the chemotherapy made her hair fall out in clumps. I sat in a chair and watched my mother slowly go from 160 pounds down to 89 pounds. Mom knew. Her body was failing, but her mind was completely sharp. She knew exactly who was actually there. 3 days after the funeral, I was sitting on the floor of Mom's closet. I was surrounded by her sweaters that still smelled exactly like her perfume, just trying to catch my breath, when my phone rang with a private number. "Is this Sarah Miller?" a man's voice asked. "I am calling on behalf of Jessica Miller. We are formally filing a claim against the estate of Linda Miller. Your sister is contesting the property transfer of 1847 Maple Street. She believes you heavily manipulated your mother into signing it over." My heart completely stopped in my chest. Mom had added my name to the house deed 2 years ago. We physically drove to the county recorder's office together. She was in a wheelchair, but she was incredibly clear-headed. She looked at me in the parking lot and told me that I was giving up my youth for her, and that ensuring I had a roof over my head was the absolute least she could do. She said Jessica already had her big house in Columbus. I hung up on the lawyer and immediately texted my sister. I typed, "Jessica, you know Mom gave me this house on her own." She texted back 3 minutes later, "We will see what a judge thinks about that. You took advantage of a dying woman with dementia." Mom did not have dementia. She had cancer. Her mind was brilliantly sharp until her final week. A week later, a process server taped the actual legal papers to my front door while my neighbors watched from their porches. My sister was officially suing me for $280,000, which was exactly half the appraised value of the property. I had to hire a probate lawyer in Dayton who charged $250 an hour, which was money I simply did not have. He sat across his desk and explained that Jessica's entire legal argument was based on undue influence. She was going to argue that Mom was not mentally competent and that I isolated her and forced her to sign the deed. Jessica went full scorched earth. She called our entire extended family and told them I held Mom hostage in her final years. She told our aunts and uncles that I aggressively refused to let her visit. She posted a massive, crying status on Facebook about grieving not just the loss of her mother, but the loss of her childhood home that her greedy sister stole from her. My aunt called my phone screaming at me. My cousin unfollowed me on everything. I instantly became the villain of the family. We had a mandatory mediation session before the trial. Jessica showed up to the conference room wearing a modest black dress, wiping away perfectly timed tears. Her expensive lawyer sat back in his leather chair and spun a story about how Jessica was the successful, loving daughter who was tragically kept away from her dying mother by a jealous, unemployed sister. I sat there with heavy bags under my eyes. I had not slept properly in months. I slid the paperwork across the table and quietly said that I had the deed and that Mom signed it willingly in front of a state notary. Her lawyer just smiled a condescending smile. "A notary does not prove mental capacity, Sarah," he said smoothly. "Where is your actual proof that your mother wanted this, and not just you?" I had nothing. I sat in that quiet room and realized I had absolutely nothing. That night, I was sitting in Mom's empty bedroom, packing up her nightstand to donate it. I was so exhausted and angry that my hands were physically shaking. I pulled the bottom drawer all the way out, and a piece of tape snagged on the wood. Taped underneath the old floral drawer liner was Mom's old iPad, the one with the cracked pink case that we all assumed was broken years ago. I plugged it into the wall. The screen lit up. There were 47 video files saved on the home screen. Mom had been secretly recording herself for the entire last year of her life. Every single video was dated. I tapped on a file from 8 months before she died. The title simply read, "For when Jessica tries something." My hands went completely numb. I pressed play. Mom appeared on the screen. She was incredibly skinny and completely bald from the chemo, but her eyes were sharp and furious. She was looking right into the camera lens, sitting in the exact same bedroom where I watched her take her last breath. "If you are watching this, I am gone," her recorded voice said, filling the quiet room. "Sarah, if Jessica is trying to take this house from you, I want you to know the absolute truth. Jessica stood in this room on Thanksgiving 2 years ago and told me that taking care of me was your job because you do not have children and your life is less important than hers. She told me she was simply too busy. She came to see me exactly 3 times last year, Sarah. 3 times. I counted them on my calendar. You came home every single night for 1,460 nights. This house is yours. I went to the lawyer myself. I wanted this. Jessica, if you are watching this, shame on you." There were dozens more. Videos where she cried and thanked me for bathing her. Videos where she held up her wall calendar, pointing to the days where she had written, "Jessica said she would come," and then traced thick red lines through the dates when she never showed up. She had even taken a clear photograph of a handwritten note detailing her sound mind and her explicit desire for me to keep the property as repayment for my sacrifice. Instead of bringing the iPad to my lawyer or dragging it into the next mediation session to demand a public apology, I sat alone in the dark on Mom's bed and watched every single video by myself. I let my mother's voice wash over the quiet room, finally giving me the exact closure I had been starving for. At 2 a.m, I exported the video file. I opened my text messages, attached the video directly to Jessica's personal phone number, and hit send. I did not include a paragraph explaining myself. I did not demand an apology. I just plugged my phone into the charger, turned off the lamp, and went to sleep. Jessica did not call me crying. The next morning at 10 o'clock, my lawyer called my cell phone. He sounded completely confused. He told me that Jessica's legal team had formally and abruptly withdrawn the entire lawsuit. They even agreed to cover my $9,000 in legal fees just to close the probate matter immediately. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a single text message from Jessica. "Mom was clearly sick and manipulated by you when she recorded that," her text read. "I am dropping the case because this toxic drama is draining my energy, and I need to protect my own peace." She doubled down on her delusion and walked away without ever admitting a single ounce of fault. She preserved her ego exactly the way I expected her to. I never replied to her text. I just opened her contact profile and permanently blocked her number. I still live in the house. I repainted Mom's bedroom a warm, bright yellow, which was always her favorite color. I went out back and planted the small vegetable garden she always talked about wanting, but never had the energy to start. Every time the county property tax bill comes in the mail, I pay it from my own bank account, knowing with absolute certainty that I earned every single square inch of this property with 4 years of my life. My sister gets to live in the massive house in Columbus that she bought with her own money. I get to live in this one because I was the one who actually showed up.